Which Breaking Bad episode would you say is the best? Is it this one? This one? Maybe this one?
You got me.
Or how about the highest rated TV episode of all time? Anytime you look into the best Breaking Bad episodes, seasons 4 and 5 come up, and I get it. A lot of stuff went down in those seasons, but very few people talk about the most important episode of Breaking Bad, which actually came in season 1. Let's talk about it.
You got one part of that wrong. This is not meth.
We all remember this great scene of Walt confronting Tuco, but the rest of the episode is severely underrated. Episode 6, Crazy Handful of Nothing, is the episode where Walt became Heisenberg both in name and in look. It's the one where we meet Tuco, where Jesse finds out about the cancer, and it also has one of my favorite Bryan Cranston subtle acting moments in the whole show.
We don't want people to start wondering about you, man.
What's great about the first season is that before Walt can confront Tuco, he has to pass a bunch of moral tests from each episode and confirm that he is, indeed, ready to become a criminal. Think of it like the Infinity Stones in the Avengers. Each episode is a level Walt has to pass in order to confront Tuco and become Heisenberg. So before we can talk about episode 6, we need to explain why the previous 5 episodes are so important and how they all lead up to that glorious moment where Heisenberg first appears and blows the shit out of Tuco's office.
Some guy had put a meth lab in the back of an RV. And the pitch always was, we're going to take Mr. Chips and we're going to turn him into Scarface.
Many people think Walt is a good guy who becomes a bad guy because of cancer, but that's not true. Walt is a selfish, cocky, aggressive guy deep down, but because of his fear of confrontation, he suppresses that side of him and is always all smiles, all nice, pretending not to be bothered even when he is. He is also a very prideful man who knows he's an underachiever and absolutely hates this about himself. You'll see more of this in season 2.
My hard work, my research, and you and Elliot make millions off it.
That cannot be how you see it.
He doesn't have the courage to own up to his feelings, and so he runs away from each battle and becomes numb to everything, even to news about him getting a terminal disease.
You understood what I've just said to you.
Lung cancer. Inoperable.
This show isn't about Walt turning into a bad guy. This show is about Walt coming to terms with who he really is, becoming a criminal in the process, which excites him and that finally wakes him up from his depression.
Tell me why you're doing this.
I am awake.
The episode starts by showing us how nobody respects Walt. Not his wife, not his son, not his brother-in-law, not even his students.
Make those tires shine, huh?
Oh my God.
The show brilliantly uses hair to give us visual representation of where Walt is on his journey. And since this is the very beginning, he's at the Mr. Flanders stage of his criminal career with a mustache so weak it's virtually translucent. So, after we find out everything about his life, his condition, and what motivates him to turn to crime, Walt finally meets the one guy he's always been himself with, Jesse. Notice how Walt has no issues confronting Jesse, mocking him, being aggressive with him, or talking down to him.
Either that, or I turn you in.
I saw your setup. Ridiculous.
Cow house?
This is the real Walt. As soon as he meets Jesse and can get some of his anger out on him, he starts acting more and more like himself. So in this episode, Walt completes the first 2 steps of becoming a successful criminal. He learns to confront people because he's got nothing to lose now. And this, in turn, makes him feel alive again as he regains his libido and gives his wife the prison greeting.
Chemistry is the study of matter. But I prefer to see it as the study of change. Growth, then decay, then transformation. It is fascinating, really.
A lot of shows try to avoid having realistic consequences for their characters because they want everything to wrap up neatly at the end of the season so they can start fresh next year and make the show as long as possible. Dexter, I'm looking at you, but not Breaking Bad. Here, most of the bad decisions made by the characters early on end up coming back to haunt them in one way or another, and we see real repercussions from trying to start a drug empire. So after their very violent confrontation with Crazy 8 and Emilio from the previous episode, now they have to deal with the aftermath. After flipping a coin, Jesse is in charge of disposing of Emilio's body, and Walt is in charge of ending Crazy 8, who miraculously survived the explosion. This is where both actors and their chemistry shine.
I don't know.
You're supposed to be a scientist!
This isn't even the issue that demands immediate attention.
This could be a very boring episode of two dumb criminals trying to figure out how to hide their tracks. But because of Bryan and Aaron's amazing chemistry together, each scene between them is hilarious even when a catastrophe happens. Like when Jesse uses his tub to dissolve Emilio.
Why you got me running around town trying to find some stupid piece of plastic when I have a perfectly good tub I can use?
So there's that.
Episode 3 picks up right where we left off. Walt and Jesse are now cleaning up the mess, but Walt's job remains unfinished. Crazy 8 is still alive. So can Walt get his next Infinity Stone and do what it takes to level up and become a criminal? Well, he almost falls for Crazy's manipulation tactics, but thanks to the rational part of his brain, he realizes he's going to be backstabbed, literally. And in the end, finally does what it takes. So now he has earned the right to go forward as a criminal since he has achieved yet another milestone, killing someone in cold blood. This episode is more of a character development episode going into the main characters' lives. We meet Jesse's parents for the first time and find out why they kicked him out of the house. And Walt has to admit he has cancer to Skylar, Hank, and Marie because there's no other alibi that can help him explain his odd behavior at home. But as far as Walt's transformation is concerned, here he completes another level, letting his aggression out. You have to understand, Walt has been avoiding conflict all his life and has learned to smile and deflect every time an asshole confronts him. So even though Walt isn't confronting him directly, he lets his intrusive thoughts win, and he blows this car up in a pretty unrealistic but badass fashion. It may look like a random scene, but it's very important for understanding where Walt stands now on the criminal scale. In episode 1, he wouldn't hurt a fly. Now we're 4 episodes in and he's comfortable blowing a car up just because a guy annoyed him. So now we have established that Walt has no problem eliminating his enemies, lying to everyone, manipulating his own family, and manifesting his aggression, all of which he used to keep hidden in the past. Episode 5 is the calm before the storm. Here we find out a little bit more about Walt's pride and how he got out of a multi-billion-dollar company that his friend and his former lover are now running. Like we said, in Season 2 we'll learn a bit more about how all of this happened.
I feel so sorry for you, Walt.
You.
But this is a very important episode because it explains how a once brilliant scientist like Walt could end up as a depressed high school teacher with repressed feelings of anger and regret.
So you run the company with Elliot?
Oh, no, that's Gretchen and Elliot.
Yeah. I gravitated toward education.
This might seem like a filler episode at first, but it is essential for understanding Walt's reasons to create a drug empire and finally get the money and respect he has craved from day one. Now that his rich former friend and business partner is offering to pay for his treatment, he absolutely refuses it. Again, Walt is a coward who would rather run away from his problems than confronting them head-on. That is what brought him here. But after an intervention from his family, he finally decides to go through with the treatment, and this motivates Walt even further to make his own money, which means cooking again and finding proper distribution for his product. So until now, all episodes worked as their own little stories, each with a little arc for Walt to complete in each one.
Wanna cook?
And all 5 episodes together laid the foundation for what I think is the best and most important Breaking Bad episode.
The chemistry is my realm. Out there on the street, you deal with that.
Crazy Handful of Nothing aired on March 2, 2008 and was written by George Mastras, one of the best writers on Breaking Bad's writing team. After writing this episode, he wrote another stellar episode of the show, Season 2's second episode, Grilled, the one where Walt and Jesse are kidnapped by Tuco. He then went on to write another very important episode in Season 2, Mandala, the one where Walt first meets Gus. He also wrote Crawl Space, Dead Freight, and Hermanos. So yeah, he's the guy responsible for writing some of the most important episodes on the show. The title Crazy Handful of Nothing derives from a line in Cool Hand Luke. It means bluffing in poker with a bad hand, and Walt literally wins a poker game by bluffing with Hank.
A handful of nothing.
See, this couldn't have happened a few episodes prior. Walt was always intimidated by Hank in every situation, but now that Walt has evolved into a ruthless drug lord who has literally killed someone, he has no issues having a stone-cold poker face around Hank in a card game. The real bluff, of course, came at the end of the episode when Walt uses an explosive disguised as crystal to blow up Tuco's office. But before we get to that scene, let's talk about the episode's cold open. You already know it's going to be great. It starts with Walt and Jesse discussing the new terms of their partnership, with Walt emphasizing how he will be the silent partner who will be in the lab and as far away from the streets as possible. This scene is intercut with Walt's first ever appearance as the bald Heisenberg, right after Tuco's confrontation. Think about it. When this episode aired in 2008, no one knew Walt was going to be bald or be called Heisenberg. So this shocking reveal was a great moment for television that sadly cannot be replicated nowadays on streaming because of all the promo images showing a bald Bryan Cranston. But if you were there in 2008 watching this show, what a truly glorious opening to what is, without a doubt, the birth of the true Breaking Bad. This was the first time the show let us know that it is not going to be a regular drama, and in spite of the slow previous episode that was all about character building, this episode means business, and it's probably the first major badass Heisenberg moment. So, Walt decides to shave off his head because of the treatment, and right off the bat, Heisenberg's look was born.
Badass dad.
Meanwhile, Jesse meets Tuco for the first time and gets his ass whooped for being disrespectful. So Walt takes it upon himself to confront the man and get back the money that was stolen. But before that, Walt collects his final Infinity Stone. He lets a nice, innocent, hard-working man go to jail because of him, showing little to no remorse as the janitor of his high school gets the blame for the missing equipment in Walt's lab. You know, the equipment Walt stole in the pilot. So the first truly classic Breaking Bad moment happens as Walt visits Tuco and confronts him, and it is glorious. Think about it. In the first episode, Walt was scared to confront a bad student. He was also too whipped to confront his wife. Now 5 episodes later, this mother is ready to take on a psycho criminal who put his partner in the hospital for virtually no reason. Everything that has been building up this season is finally paying off. Walt has finally earned his ranks to become Heisenberg, and things will only get more exciting from now on. Thanks for watching.